So a TED Talk is a brief presentation, a talk, to educate or inform an audience on an important subject and using a global platform. So anyone can give a TED Talk. It can be a lawyer, it can be a doctor, it can be a teacher, a journalist. And usually TED Talks are very creative, innovative, and they are given by people who are experts on a specific topic. So the acronym TED Talk, or TED, stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design, and first appeared in 1984. And finally, one of the most popular talks, which has become famous recently, is the one that was delivered by Bill Gates back in 2015 when he claimed that our world, wasn't ready for a pandemic.
I lived in Mexico for around 3 years and I absolutely loved it. And it wasn't because of the delicious chilaquiles. It wasn't because of the margaritas by the beach. And it wasn't because of the wonderful people I met there. No, I think that if I should sum up my love for Mexico, I would sum it up to Mexican culture. Yes, it wasn't in the world-reputed artistic Europe, but in the dusty markets of Oaxaca, I realized that art is something that is really important because it is about community, it is about us. I discovered how after a traumatizing event, an earthquake, where people had lost their families, their homes, and were restricted basic access to electricity and water, how this whole community stood strong just because they produced and consumed local arts and crafts. Now, this communitary aspect of art is very specific to Mexico because the definition of local arts and crafts encompass really any kind of art. It can be some wax sculpture, some wooden sculpture, any kind of textile, and any kind of clay work, really. And it's also very diverse because of who makes it. In Mexico, you have over 100 of communities. Each has their own religion, their own cultural aspect, and so their own kind of art. Now, this may seem a little bit vague. This is why I would like to introduce you to an example. Alebrijes. Alebrijes are wooden sculpture depicting an animal. Now, the objective is not to be an accurate zoological depiction of an animal. The objective is to show a message for an animal with cosmological representation. What's very interesting with alebrijes is that for one type of art form, you have a grand scale of producers. You have renowned artists such as Jacobo Angeles, who has alebrijes that can be sold for more than thousands of dollars. You have institutions such as the Met Museum, who will sell them directly, not only at museums, but also at airports. And of course, you have all the local communities who in alebrijes put regional specificities in the paint detail. What is really nice about alebrijes is that the communities learned by showing their regional specificities, they would be competitive and tourists would actually enjoy them. And also, it shows you the diversity you can have only for one type of art form. Imagine now, for all the art forms I previously stated, how much culture you can find into local arts and crafts. And it is also because for those communities, local arts and crafts isn't just a manufactured product. It is an economic pillar and also a way to transmit to new generation a knowledge that has been inherited for centuries. This has a lot of consequences. And between a clay Catarina you can find at the north of the Mexican country and a Guatemaltec-like textile you find at the south, those two objects have nothing in common. They could be from different continents. You wouldn't notice. Now, unfortunately, I'm not here to just speak about the beauty of Mexican local arts and crafts. I'm here to speak about the danger that they're facing today, because there are some serious issues. And the first one is concerning the way they're regarded by the elites, Mexican elites, and the Mexican government. Local arts and crafts are still regarded as a popular art form, a tourist gimmick that is soon to be disappearing, whereas modern art is a much more noble art form that will have more funds because it represents better the economic growth that has seen Mexico. And this, to be honest, is absolutely terrible for all the artists. This means that even though you have some institutions that will fund the different art forms and you still have some protection, it is to tribal-like communities that don't really have a connection to media to defend the future of centuries of art. This leaves them very exposed, particularly to brand. For example, Zara in 2017, you may know them. They had stolen patterns from textiles of the Patao people. They have printed those patterns that weren't theirs on their dress and sold millions of copies of those dresses without crediting the Patao people. There was a judiciary action, a lawsuit engaged by the Mexican government. The issue was very disappointing because although they had to pay monetary compensation, they still could use the patterns without even crediting the Patao people. So not only are they not recognized, but also to produce local art form costs a lot to the community. You see, the way a community works is that the man every week will go work at the city, find jobs. Meanwhile, so of course it's a tendency, it's not always the case, but women tend to stay in the village with the kids. They take care of the agriculture, of the homes, the education, but also they are the one who will produce all those local art forms. So who is left to sell them? Of course, the men don't have the time to sell them, so who? Well, you have two cases. The first one is that it's a retailer who will sell all those manufactured products. He will take a huge commission, and so often the communities don't get paid back the way they should. And in the other case, it's the children that sell the manufactured object. Of course, children don't really understand currency and have a lot of trouble to negotiate. So a lot of time, well, to produce local arts and crafts for a community costs more than it relieves. And because of this, you had a lot of problem finding new disciples. So you have an artistic master and you have his disciple. Today, nobody really wants to get into the local arts and crafts business. Often the people in the communities prefer to leave to the city where they will find a more stable job. And there is a last setback for local arts and crafts. It was in 2020. You had a world pandemic, COVID. And in Mexico, it hit really hard. Now, I am not here to speak about the gestion of the COVID by the Mexican government. First of all, I am not that qualified, and also it can get very political. All you need to understand is that in Mexico, a lot of artists and of people in general rely on day-to-day, direct-to-person services. They couldn't just stop working because the money they made during the day was what was going to pay their meal for the next. You also don't have the social security net, so people could just not stop their activity. Because of that, the lockdown only lasted a month. And afterward, all the economical activities reopened, all the businesses, all the brands, all the local artists. They aren't really a high amounts of death on the records of the COVID. This is very controversial. Some people think the counting of the deaths wasn't made properly by the Mexican government. But in all cases, we had a huge amount of local artists who died. And that was really a problem because, as I told you earlier, they had trouble finding disciples. And all their knowledge, centuries-old knowledge, wasn't recorded in archives, wasn't written. And like that, it just vanished. So what can we do to preserve local arts and crafts in Mexico? Frankly, I am not asking to you to be the white knights of the Mexican local arts, to go on the social media. I am not either asking for you to boycott some brands such as Zara, who stole motives from the Pitawo people. The only thing I would like you to acknowledge is that you often have the opportunity to travel. And you always, when you travel, enjoy having a souvenir. I can only encourage you to buy those local arts and crafts at Souvenir, but buy them responsibly. Every time you buy some arts and crafts, think, who is the artist? And when I am buying this product, is he really going to get my money? Am I really doing something positive for the community? Thank you very much.